for the man, and the group again, looking at their reaction yesterday to him coming off the field was brilliant. To do what he did, and he's a kind of an unassuming type of character as well. I know he commented that he had a free shot. It was a draw game, so again, looking at it as a free shot, but the walk up to that kick after it's abuse that he's gotten over the last couple of years, and I'm sure that was sweet. And I was delighted for him as a person, individual. And then, as Maurice said, like losing his grandmother during the week, Pádraig alluded that he had said to him, "Look, take the week off training," and he arrived up on Tuesday evening. Um, so again, these lads are human beings at the end of the day, and I'm sure they, much knowledge they try to block out comments and people's commentaries on things. Yeah, I'm sure it was very sweet for him, and I was delighted.
The Maroon White Pod brought to you by CityLink. For bookings, timetables, updates and any other information, head to citylink.ie. Well, that was sweet, for sure. We'll take that any day of the week, beating Mayo by 1 point, and fair dues to Conor Glesson, a remarkable effort, and fair play to him because he has got a lot of criticism in the county and he's answered every critic he's got. I'm delighted to be joined by Maurice Brosnan and St James's senior football manager Barry Downey to look back on Galway's victory yesterday, which meant a 3 in a row Connacht titles, which hadn't been done since the 80s, a remarkable achievement. Barry, coming to you first. Is that the best Galway victory in the circumstances over Mayo?
Oh, definitely. It's definitely one of the sweetest, without a doubt. And I thought, the character that was shown. Yes, there was lots of things to improve on, and I suppose as a management team, that's what you'd love to have, is to win and have those things. But you know, to be 2 points down in the 71st minute of a game as intense as that, and as emotional as we saw at the end, I just thought the composure was brilliant. There was no sense of panic. And those late subs really made a difference as well, I have to admit. But yeah, from a Mayo Galway story, that one will remain for a long, long time.
Where does that rank for you, Mars?
Oh, it has to be sweet, yeah. It's a sweet one. I think it reminds me a lot of 2022. I know the lads actually referenced that afterwards, that they said, that was the one that sparked their season, and this one would hopefully do something similar. But I think just given Paul the nature of the last, not 12 months, but definitely from the preliminary final defeat against Mayo last year, I just felt like things kind of spiraled a small bit, and a bit of negativity kind of seeped out. Some of it was avoidable, some of it was inevitable. Right from the stuff that went on towards the back end of the club season, was our lads going to be involved or not? We're all kind of asking questions about Peter Cook. There was no confirmation about it. Kind of spiraled into January, and suddenly we're hearing about all these injuries, and then the league goes the way it goes. And just to get a break, I think the sense of relief, combined with the fact that you beat your rivals and do it at home and do it in the manner that they did it, and yeah, there's a bunch of different factors why I'm sure it was satisfying for everyone involved.
Morris, do you want to deny the allegations? There's a couple of allegations being made that you obviously wrote the article about the record during the week. Pork referenced it after the game, but you're telling me he wasn't referring to you.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm sure you know this yourself, Paul. Like, writing about the county you're based in is never an easy thing to do, and so I was downstairs afterwards, and I suddenly my phone starts exploding, and I hear people. He's referenced this article. Look, I mean, people can go read the article if they want. I honestly don't think it was. I know I'm obviously going to say this. I genuinely don't think it was aimed towards me. I was there afterwards. If he had an issue with it, I think he would have said it to me. All the article itself was literally something that was been referenced everywhere. I mean, the Irish Independent had a version of it. The Sunday World had a version of it. Just purely the record against Paris record against Mayo. That was what it was. There was nothing really beyond that. A couple of quotes from the Connacht launch and fleshed out a small bit. But yeah, look, I don't really. I kind of hate talking about myself in these circumstances. The only thing I would say, like, I think from a Galway perspective, they're fully entitled to weaponize all the stuff that they heard over the last couple of weeks. I've absolutely no doubt that we live in a modern world. All the lads are online. I'm sure they hear the same stuff that we all hear. And they're fully entitled to use that whatever way they want. So if they use that over the last couple of weeks, and that was a source of motivation, fair play to them. And to be honest, like I definitely got a sense yesterday that that was something that they were keen to utilize, I would say, and they were keen to put it right. Like, for example, every single dressing room will have a sign up, whatever, a couple of little key teams that they want to, drive home. Like,
Mm.
one of the ones in the Galway dressing room yesterday was togetherness. That was up on the wall. It was a team that they were driving. And it was interesting to me, anybody I talked to after the game, and maybe, Paul, you deserve some credit here. Anybody of the lads that I was interviewing, they were very keen to praise some other players who might have been coming out of the cosh. So Conor Glesson, for example, they were really bigging him up. He's obviously had a difficult week with his grandmother passing away. They were really keen to celebrate him. By the same token, I was talking to Robert Finlay on the pitch afterwards while Sean Kelly was lifting the trophy. And while I was talking to Rob, Shane Walsh came walking across us, and I actually asked him a question about Damien Comer, but he went leaned across, grabbed Shane, brought him in under his arm, said, "What about this fella? He's back to his best. Make sure you mention him." And look, Shane wasn't interested in talking, which is totally his own prerogative. Like he didn't want to do media, which is fair enough. But Rob was keen to point out, make sure this guy gets his fair dues. And then I went inside and I was speaking to John Maher again, just doing a quick interview afterwards, and he did the same thing. Like he didn't see that happen now, but he exact same things said. What about Shane Walsh? Was very keen to drive that home. So, if I'm getting some credit, then maybe you deserve too, Paul.
No, I think too, though that group of players and panel management didn't get enough credit for the league that they performed in as well. Under the circumstances, with the amount of bodies missing, to still survive in Division One, for me was a huge achievement that probably was maybe knocked throughout the campaign. And what it's done now at the correct time of year is that you have the likes of Shane Walsh coming back, you have Damien coming back, you have Killian coming back. All of a sudden now, there's a bench there, which probably wouldn't have been there, truth be known, if all them fellas were available during the league campaign. So, I think it's a really, really important win from a, motivation point of view, for momentum, and for belief. And, they'll take beating if they have all those players on the field.
Yeah, just on that, obviously, Maurice, you're referring there to the Shane Walsh clip that went online, and that's what we want to see from Shane Walsh. People might feel that he was harshly criticised on the podcast in the lead up to this game, but that's the Shane Walsh we want to see because we all know what he's capable. He's in his peak at the minute, and we want to see performances like that from Shane in the Galway jersey. But it's interesting, Maurice, when you were talking there about the emotion between the management. There's even a great image on Sports File of John Concannon as Conor Gleeson takes the
Watching
free.
the free, yeah, magic, yeah.
And he can't even look at it.
Yeah, that was I saw that picture as well. That was absolutely quality. And look, the fixture itself means a lot to people like John, obviously because of his background, like growing up in Milltown, the rivalry itself. So that in itself was probably cause for celebration. But then the fact that they've endured the couple of months that they've had, and football is fickle, Paul. It's funny how one result can suddenly change your entire trajectory. And if Galway beat Derry in 2 weeks' time, they're in the box seat. People are going to be hailing them as All Ireland contenders. I would like to think. I kind of maintained over the last couple of months they were never in a bad place. I never would have said that. I wouldn't have said they were in a great place either. I think they were kind of exactly where they were. They were hitting par. They were doing it what they expected with what they had, and now suddenly they've got everybody back. There's still a lot of room for improvement. There's no getting away from that. But things are definitely the arrow is definitely pointing upwards.
Lads, just on Conor Gleeson, we got a comment in here from a Tunmore man about building a statue of Conor Gleeson in Ayr Square. But Barry, there's no point of scapegoating this or anything, but Conor Gleeson he's received ridiculous commentary over the last few years. And I think that's every keen Galway supporter is just absolutely delighted for this man. And then, as Maurice mentions, what he went through during the week.
Yeah, no, it speaks volumes for the man, and the group again. Looking at their reaction yesterday to him coming off the field was brilliant. To do what he did, and he's a kind of an unassuming type of character as well. I know he commented that he had a free shot. It was a draw game, so again looking at it as a free shot, but the walk up to that kick after it's abuse that he's gotten over the last couple of years, and I'm sure that was sweet. And I was delighted for him as a person, individual. And then, as Maurice said, like losing his grandmother during the week, Pádraig alluded that he had said to him, "Look, take the week off training," and he arrived up on Tuesday evening. Um, so again, these lads are human beings at the end of the day, and I'm sure they, much in all as they try to block out comments and people's commentaries on things. Yeah, I'm sure it was very sweet for him, and I was delighted.
That is the thing there, Maurice. Even Barry talks there. Like it has been abuse that Conor Gleeson has received in the past couple of years, but it felt like not that he needed to redeem himself, but it felt like a certain amount when he hit that winner that it was just he was able to kind of answer the critics.
It actually, maybe this is a classic journalist thing to do, but it kind of reflected the theme of the day for me. Like, I think Park said himself afterwards that Connor's performance wasn't perfect. He at one stage he came out and he was turned over, and there's maybe a kick out or two in the first half that went awry, but he persevered. Like he kept going. Um, kicked the first free. Robert Findlay told me that he's never seen Connor kick a free ever. Like he Dunmore obviously would have been a media club up until recently, so he wouldn't have actually seen him play with his club, and he wasn't kicking them in training. So he had no idea what was happening when the first put down. He didn't know where that was going. And then he stuck it and gave him. I think everybody had really confidence that he would drill the second one. But you just couldn't but be delighted for him. I have to say, I thought that was a really nice feature of everything post matches. The way that every single player, Sean's speech, I thought was just class. Like to see the emotion in that in itself was fairly cool. But even when we were waiting outside afterwards, and you could hear what was going on in the dressing room and who was at the center of it, and they were certainly keen to make sure he got his day in the sun, and it was well deserved.
Maurice, the other thing too, and people remark on maybe yes the one or two things that didn't go well for him in the game, and they'll be obviously remembered for the free, but there was a pivotal Mayo kick out where he got a knockdown to Paul Conroy, and again that was really really critical that a lot of people won't pick up on, and again that was shortly after the time where he was caught, but again it showed the measure of the man to persevere and keep going at what he was doing and the job that he had to do.
Just on that, it was interesting to hear him afterwards being interviewed by Joanne Cantwell, Maurice, and she asked, was this part of the plan? And Conor said no.
Yeah. It was really interesting. Up until that point in the game, neither team had been able to score off the opposition's long kickouts. Both teams like to try and get out long, but neither team could get to grips with it. Now, Mayo have a real problem with their long kickout lads. Like it was an issue against Roscommon. It was an issue here. I think they won 4 or 7, but they didn't score enough of it, and then they ended up conceding 2 points down the home stretch off their own kickout, which that's, if you want to be brutal about it, that's the difference in this game. But yeah, the fact that he reacted the way he did, and I have to say, I was kind of curious to see how would goalkeepers react after the whole Jim McGuinness stuff, and to see a ball going out on top of a goalkeeper, and were they going to start panicking and go back? But he went full bore for it. As Barry outlined, did really well to get a fist to it, and that's the difference for Galway. They end up picking off two kickouts, get 2 points off it, and that just to go double down on what I thought, a point Barry made earlier, the composure they showed during that stretch when the whole place, even the line, is losing their minds. Just from a player's on the field perspective, it was really admirable.
Yeah, no, really was. And look, we mentioned emotion a few times, and it's brilliant to see teams celebrating, and that emotion is something that you don't see now in a lot of the games. So I think it's really really good to see, and it's great to see everybody celebrating, both management, players, and the supporters.
It was interesting when he was asked about the freeze, and he said he just got a text during the week from John Buchanan to practice the freeze. And the amazing thing is we haven't really seen him play that role of coming out for the breaks as a midfielder. We haven't seen him all year take freeze. he hasn't taken a lot of frees for Dunmore really either. Even when they were in their run to the intermediate, um, I can't remember him taking too many. Did, what do you think happened here? Do you think it just came out of the blue, or
I think it's an options thing because so Shane's injury is a tendon at the top of his groin, which he aggravated kicking off the ground against Mayo, and that's why he was out for in the league. I'm talking about here now. Sorry, at the start of the league, that's why he was out for as long as he was, and it's still not fully right, so he can't kick off the ground. Matthew Tierney obviously injured
yeah,
himself taking a free off the ground against Tyrone. That's how he suffered that injury. So the two boys who take off 45s or frees off the ground were both gone. Your next best option is Johnny Heaney, to my mind anyway. Anybody who's watched Clannon over the last
yeah?
couple of years will tell you he's this brilliant striker off the ground. But he was taken off. So I think this just goes down to management. You know, you run your scenarios. What are we doing if we're without three proven takers off the ground? And your natural option, especially in modern football, is let's look to our goalkeeper. So I think in that same OT interview, did Conor say that he got a text during the week to start thinking about it, and that was it. But the fact that they planned for that is a credit to management.
You surely stick with it now, Barry.
Oh yeah, look again. It's a big part of the game now. You're looking at probably 3 to 4 scores. Um, obviously you have the Morgan chap in Tyrone, obviously Stephen Cluxton, and it's 2 or 3 points a game in a lot of these games, and in tight games such as a 1 point win, there you go.
If we were to look back at the first half in particular, first half, Galway have a few chances maybe that they left behind. Damien Comer's free out on the side, he drops it short. Johnny Heaney runs in on the edge of the D, hits it wide. Robert Finnerty misses one.
John Daly at the block, yeah.
John Daly with the block. Was it the key with the first half for Galway? Like there are a couple of missed chances there, as we mentioned in Mars, but just their ability to stay in that game when things weren't going well.
Yeah, I think so. And I made this point earlier on our I actually wrote about this for the paper today. I think the thing that stood out to me during that stretch was Damien Comer. I think Damien has had better individual performances, as in he's had hit higher at higher heights in a Galway jersey before, and what is it? Is this his fifth Connacht title, I think? But I don't think he's had a finer hour for Galway than he had yesterday. Just given that it was from what I can see, from how I tagged it, I think of Galway's first 9 scores, uh, Damien's directly involved in 7. So that's whether it's being fouled for a free, laying off the rob, or he obviously kicked the point at the top of the D and he went past, he burned McLaughlin at the start of the second half as well. And then actually for Shane's second point, he comes out and wins that kick out, he pucks it out of the sky, and that's what leads to Dylan McHugh coming like a train. He lays off to Shane and he puts it over. So yeah, look, for me, the takeaway from the first half was that Mayo could not live with Damien Comer. It was obvious. I think he was turned over once, and it was, geez, I thought it was a questionable tackle, to be
It
honest.
was a 50-50 call, yeah.
Yeah, McBride, he
Yeah.
was living dangerously at that stage. And probably before that too. But yeah, that for me, that was the thing that kept Galway in the game, was that even though they might not say they've been getting much hands on ball, and John Maher actually said that to me as well afterwards, that when he was brought on, one of the things that he was said was, all our attacks are 10, 15 seconds here, and then we're giving Mayo the ball back. Let's try and get our hands on it here, and if you have to slow it down, do, but just let's get the ball back off them here at home. So, but yeah, for me, that's long story short, Paul. The takeaway for me was that Damien Comer is an exceptionally good footballer.
Yeah, I think he was unbelievable yesterday, but I think one performance is actually up there with him in the club championship in 2023 against Milltown, where he scored 10 points from full forward. He was he's remarkable that day too. Um, but Barry, for Damien Comer, it's just this the step in the man for a man who's so big. It's just remarkable.
No, and the turn he had for the shot at the goal, and look, it was a brilliant save, to be fair. But yeah, no, look, and this is again something we have to remember, is that when these guys come back from as long a layoff as Damien and Shane and Killian have, you can't expect them to come in at the full peak. So to do what he did yesterday again was really, really remarkable. As Maurice said there, the frees that he won. Even the ball he laid off to do 1-2 he had with Mar for the goal chance in the
Yeah.
second half, like the speed of his hands even. Yeah, he probably at the moment probably one of the best forwards in the country. And even at this early stage, because of again the minding that he takes, and that McBrien lad is no fool of a footballer. And he was made look very average yesterday. Now again, I think he was left a little bit exposed as well, which was I thought was a huge surprise from Mayo leaving the amount of space in front of him. But yeah, again, you don't do that with Damien Comer.
Lads, can he be the best forward in the country this year?
Yeah, I again, it's you know you look at the likes of what they have now compared to say 22. And you have Rob Finnerty now maturing to a really, really good footballer, and they'll all benefit from each other, if you like, because it's very hard to mind two, three, four lads, which they have now. And that's the exciting part from a Galway point of view. But yeah, no, he'll rip it up, I think. And again, frustrating as it must have been to be sidelined for so long, there's going to be a freshness there now, that he has over some other lads around the country, and Shane as well. So again, we alluded to earlier, they're coming into form, they're coming into the pitch at the right time, and I still don't think they're fully going 100% yet. So that's the exciting part from his point of view in Galway as well.
Where do you think he can get to this season, Maurice?
This season in particular is really interesting, Paul, because um, I think a lot of teams are going to struggle picking a matchup for Damien. Maybe even more so. If you think of a David Clifford, right, you know pretty much who you're going to match up against. Your best man marker is going on David Clifford, regardless of who you're playing. For every single opposition, that's what they're weighing up. Whereas if you take it from Derry's perspective, right, I think for the last 5 years, their best man marker has been Chrissy McKay. He's their standout guy. They send him after somebody, but they didn't send him after Damien in 2022 in the semi final for a good reason. I think physically Damien has it there. And that was a real worry. So they tried to Brendan Rodgers, and we all know how that went. So now you're looking at it from a Derry perspective, and you're saying, do we revert? I don't. They're not going to bring Brendan Rodgers out of midfield, I don't think. So do you go back to a 2 years older Chrissy McKay, who has endured his own struggles, you would have to say, over the last couple of rounds? Do you take on McAvoy out of fullback and move him back in there as well, or do you tear it up entirely and go back to Rodgers? But they're going to have to make a call there, and I think a lot of teams are going to struggle with that matchup, particularly because he's obviously so physical, but you can't go rest on him. But his pace, like the very first, not the goal chance, that's the incredible save, the one where he had the advantage, where he burned down the
Mm,
the terrace site and
mm,
came in on the line there. Like he left McBride for dead there.
yeah.
And just drilled
Just
into
on
the
that,
post.
how the hell did David McBride not finish with a yellow card yesterday?
Yeah, I don't know. Don't get me talking about the referee. I mean, I
There's
hate
three
talking about
fouls in
him.
the first half alone. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I know Barry can take that one.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of a head scratcher. Some of the decisions were, look, I think it was an even enough, I suppose, game from a refereeing point of view, that some calls were harsh and some were soft for both sides. But yeah, certainly that one, and especially the free that was called back for a substitution, hugely frustrating from a player and a management point of view. Um, there was a 45 given at one stage, and it was brought in to the edge of the D.
Yeah,
Again,
for free. That
I,
was.
I've not seen. I look. I wouldn't be 100% up on rules, but I didn't think a 45 could be brought forward for any reason. But yeah, it was a head scratcher. But you said there was three or four fouls and no sign of a card.
Yeah, I even thought his first one where he ran through and pushed Comer in the back. I know there's only 5 minutes gone, but surely
No, but
you're denying a goal scoring opportunity there, no?
that's it. Yeah, and whether it's 5 minutes or 55 minutes,
Yeah,
it's the same foul. So
yeah.
we don't have the luxury of being able to pick and choose just because of time in the game. But yeah, it was a strange one.
Just when I interrupt you there about Comer, Morris, I think the biggest threat for him is he's on the edge of the square, obviously, his physicality and pace, but what people maybe weren't realising before yesterday, he's as much of a threat going out to the field, even second half where he ran out and got onto the ball. Whether he's coming onto the ball or attacking the ball on the edge of the square, he's a threat anywhere.
Yeah, and he made the one thing you noticed yesterday. I think he made a mess of Mayo's structure. Like they're trying to play man on man, but they very quickly realized they need to try and get somebody back in front of him. But without somebody being designated to do that, I don't know. Do you remember when Paul Connor was fouled on the terrace side? It was Aidan O'Shea who was standing in front of Comer at that stage. Jack Harney was back doing it a lot. Like he was at the forefront of their minds, obviously and rightly because of the form he was in. And I think even as well as that, Paul, what that end up doing is that because the people are so preoccupied with Damien, like he kicked 2 points yesterday, but suddenly Rob starts finding a load of space. It's what is the third choice man marker who ends up going across to him. So he ends up getting bricking in, and his form hasn't been great this year. And Rob capitalizes on that, and does exceptionally well. Their link up play is very good. I think Paul, was it 2 years ago after Sasha got to the county final? I think do we talk about the fact that there could be a future for Finnery on the 45 that he
We were
actually has
banging that
the
drum for a while.
yeah, but I have to say I was thinking about that when the scuffed Malloy pass that went up in the air and Rob won it, and just the lovely dink pass into them, like that move. It wasn't systematic. I mean, I don't think Malloy necessarily meant for his pass to go the way it did, but how Rob made the most of it. And you think about what happened in 2022 when they were able to have an inside line of Walsh, Comer and Finnery, like that's working back towards that, and how each of them could capitalize if somebody's drilling down on the other is exciting prospect.
Maurice mentioned there about Comer's best 60 minutes for Galway yesterday, but is that Rob Finnerty's best performance for Galway you've seen, Barry?
Yeah, and particularly what I liked, he had a free early on that he dropped short or went wide. And again, there's even just there's a nice swagger about him now. And
The
arrogance
hunger
in a
was
good,
there yesterday, even when he
yeah,
gave the
you,
cornerback a nice little rub
yeah.
there.
And again, we don't see enough of that type of character
Yeah.
in football. And he's kind of a cheeky type of chappy, but yeah, I think as Morris said earlier there, when you have Damien Comer and Shane Walsh in there, somebody is going to be freed up, and he definitely utilised that yesterday. And yeah, in the first half, Galway were probably playing off scraps and bits and pieces, but again, he kept that scoreboard ticking over at crucial times, and he got one fabulous score there midway through the first half as well. And he has that ability. But yeah, and again, he didn't play a full league either, so he's again coming in relatively fresh as well, which is good.
Really, if you're putting him at 11, Morris, like it's a nightmare if you're centre back there, like because he's not a player you drop off, and then you obviously you'll have Comer and he possibly even Walsh in beside him. It's a bit of a nightmare for defenses now when you consider what Galway can do here.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're trying to do is tie them in not it'll be opposition dependent. So like Derry six doesn't really drop off. They'll generally box off man and man and just back themselves to win in each of those matchups. So there's threats on both sides of the ball there. Obviously, it is if any of the if Finney or Comer Watch can cut loose, that's brilliant. If they're caught on the other side, there's potential difficulties there as well, especially the way they attack. But thinking further down the line, with the way certain teams are trying to free up their six to drop off, it's just not an option if Finney's there. Even like Paul, I think you could. I I like the idea of as much as possible. I appreciate the point you're making about him coming out the ball, but if you keep Comer across the goal, if Finley's out slightly out in front of him, and then let Walsh come on to the play the way I thought that's what he was doing yesterday. It's not he's not necessarily having to win ball on the 45. It's he's running off the shoulder for McHugh. That point for me is that could nearly be a template. Like if a lot of I think he can play a lot of good football as a wing forward nearly. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that pressure, and you can Damien is a focal point, and you've got two other great options there if it comes to it as well. So the best thing about it is there's huge versatility now, and that's a luxury that wasn't available for the past 5 months.
As well, Barry, I think Matthew Tierney's impact has really went under the radar. Like that man won some like dirty ball in that second half where he had to put his head sometimes where he mightn't have liked that, but like it was a huge impact that he made.
Always, absolutely, and again, I think it was probably enforced. Obviously, Johnny Heaney took a knock, and
Mm.
came, but this is what I was alluding to earlier as well about the benefits now of having a bench. And when you have the likes of that coming in, the likes of uh, Donald Flaherty as well. Again, he was responsible for at least one of those late turnovers.
Did
There was a
excellent as well. He was nearly bottled at one stage, got it back out.
yeah, no, again, and that's what you want from your subs coming in. But yeah, having I think Matthew Tierney scored 2-7 in the Connacht final last year. So when you have the likes of these fellas coming in, and again bringing the tempo up and making an impression when they come in, that's exactly what you want as a management team. And all the subs that came in yesterday all played a part, and up the levels again, which was very evident in that last 10 or 15 minutes.
Is the biggest thing to take away from this, Mars? At stages of that second half, particularly when Tommy Conroy got that point, you were kind of nearly figuring, will Mayo just do enough to hold it out? Obviously, we're 2 points down going into the injury time. But is it the character and the resilience here of this group, the job the Galway half forward line did on the Mayo halfback line? Because we touched about that on previous podcasts that the Mayo halfback line has destroyed Galway in these games. But are they all the biggest positives to take out of this result?
Yeah, I think so. And I think without putting too fine a point to it, the biggest positive is just the result. It's what that will do for their season. Honestly, I think if you had offered them a result and a woeful performance, they would have taken it beforehand. Just because of what it does for the group, it changes the complexion of everybody around the camp. What that was very evident yesterday. It wasn't just players and management; it was everybody on the outskirts of it. It was friends, family. The relief was evident on county board officials. Everybody was just so buoyed by getting a win over Mayo in South Hill. But yeah, look, in this performance itself, I think so. Yeah, I think they were justified in a lot of kind of big calls they made. They stuck with their long kick out despite the fact that it was a difficulty with in the game last year, for example. And like talking about guys who got under the radar, I think Keane Darcy was a great foil. Like there would have been, I think maybe a concern was how were they going to use him given the difficulty he had against Mayo in the league, and he went out around middle and battled incredibly hard. And I think he gained a foothold there. He won that battle in the end. So they were justified in that. Their full back line, like there's not really enough plaudits you can give them. Again, just and all three of them had like brilliant moments, which has become a kind of a consistent team across the year. There's a huge amount of positives there, and I know this sounds kind of wishy-washy. I do think it's a positive that a couple of really reliable, great Galway players, their form still isn't quite there. So there's like their ceiling. There's a lot of room for improvement in a couple of players. Like fingers crossed, Sean Kelly gets up and running, and we see him back to his best. I think Kieran Noy will obviously be disappointed to be hooked when he was. Players like that, if they can kick on as well, the whole thing just goes to another level. So, there's obviously room for improvement, and there's a lot of I think reasons to be a bit more optimistic than everybody has for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the finish there, Barry, like it's huge, isn't it?
As is, and look, I think if you had a choice to win by 10 points or the way they won yesterday, you would take yesterday, because what that means to the group, and look, there's going to be a lot of tight games coming from here on in, and to know that you can dig out a result like that in the manner that they did, um, is brilliant, and it gives great confidence to know that when the chips are down, and that they've done it now once, they can do it again. And we've seen it before, even in Armagh against Armagh in 22. You know, they they really dug deep that day, and again, it just brings on a group.
Just on a question that came in here from one of the followers of the podcast, Enda Collins, he talked about the breaking ball yesterday, and it's something Mayo did win a lot. Now, guys did seem to get to grips with it and win a bit more breaking ball towards the end. Is that a concern, Mars?
I don't think so. No, like I don't know. Some people seem to think breaking ball is purely about appetite and hunger, and I wouldn't have doubted either teams in that regard yesterday. So sometimes it's a pure structural thing. If you've got one team is setting up zonal defensively on the kick out, another team is sending shooters to each wing, and the guy gets isolated and he doesn't win the clean. Suddenly he's just outnumbered. Like it can be that simple, but it's not something I would have looked at over the last couple of weeks and said, "Oh, Galway have a serious issue with breaking ball." Really, and I think just to go back to what I was saying earlier, I think Mayo very evidently had a problem with their long kick out. Galway got their press on really well, especially down the straight there. Now look, there was a lot of breaks in the game in general that went their way. I think if you'd have maybe some question marks about decisions in the first half. Definitely, I think the last free, the Conor Loftus one was probably soft. Um, but so look, but to go back to your question, no, it wouldn't be something that we sitting here. I don't think I'd be keeping Park and Keane up tonight, for example.
Do you think it's something that they're just gradually going to get better at?
Yeah, and I think it depends. Like I think it's opposition dependent more so than it is what even necessarily what they're doing. Like there's every chance. For example, the Derry game could follow in a similar pattern, and you'll see a huge amount of long kickouts. But there's equally opportunities come down the line where I think Galway will be a lot more just get hands on ball, and they'll know they're stronger than opposition, and maybe necessarily want to bring it into that battle. So I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't think it would be a concern. It's not something that over the last couple of games you're looking at and thinking that they have an issue in that regard.
There are two goal chances as well, Barry. Damien Comer's in the first half, and Colin Reeve does terrific there. I think we were all watching back replays last night and wondering how after John Mayer's goal chance that it didn't go in the back of the net. There's positives to create them, but given where we are now, it's something that they're going to be working on to hit the net.
Definitely, but again, in both of those instances, and Liam Silk's one particularly, I watched it again a couple of times today. I don't know how that ball stayed out. You couldn't be critical of either lad and even John Maher's first shot, which was cleared off the line, he did everything right. Damien's as well was again you'd put it down as a really good save. Maybe could have kept it a little bit lower. But no, again, for me, and it's all about creating chances. If you're not creating chances, I'd be worried. So like that for me, the more chances you create, the more opportunities you're going to get. And look, again, you can't be critical of those two particular ones anyway yesterday.
How do you see it, Maurice?
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The bricking in save was kind of remarkable, but also it's equally as remarkable how that ball didn't end up in the net after it. And I did the Coleman one in the first half which we referenced earlier. That was a good goal chance as well. So they're carving out opportunities. I wouldn't, if you're telling me the only thing that will deny Galway is those kind of freaks / incredibly acrobatic saves for the rest of the year, I think more often than not you'd take that and reckon you come out on the right side of it eventually.
Is there anywhere else we've referenced there about the breaking ball, and even at stages, I suppose we haven't mentioned it, but when Conor Glesson does come out and he gets turned over, thankfully Dylan McHugh is back on the line. Mayo obviously don't hit the net there, but as we were saying, I'm sure Matthew Ryan would be raging that he didn't get that ball. But is there anywhere, other area, Barry, that you feel that they need to improve moving forward?
Look, again, it's very easy. We all have our comments and we all have our views. Personally, I'd like to see Sean Kelly at 6.
Would you play John Daly then?
I would, yeah. There's definitely a place for him. And look, as I said, everybody has their views. For me, that's just one that we'd see probably more from Sean Kelly as well. Look, again, you can't expect him to be 100% just yet. It's games, it's match fitness, it's games and football that these guys need. But I think going forward, I think it would be a really, really solid move. And I think we get far more out of Kelly at 6 as well.
Do you see maybe possibly that we might see Sean Kelly back in his former position that he played in 2022, Maurice?
But be careful now, Paul. I don't think Sean in all seriousness has done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Look, I get the point in terms of in possession. Sometimes you kind of wonder, is Sean actually better coming on to the ball? I know he's, even if he's, nominally he's listed as playing the half forward line, he's gravitating back anyway. But he goes into that forward line, he's Downey McHugh all over him like a rash, and he's to deal with that for the first 20 minutes. Whereas if there's a bit more leeway for him to punch holes the way he did previously. But um, I, regardless of his position, I think the main thing on Barry's point is just getting as much football into him as possible, getting him back up to speed, and it'll come eventually after that. But so no, I'm not necessarily sure. I before this game, I liked the idea that they'd start him in half forward line to deal with the threat that Mayo's athleticism had. And look, he wasn't his best game, obviously, but you'd be reasonably confident that it'll come over the next couple of weeks. Just one other point on your takeaways or whatever the areas for improvement for Galway. I definitely think their starts in games is something they need to look at. I don't know why it is, but I think this year it's Galway played 10 games in League and Championship. In six of them, they've made a first half sub. And a lot of them, it'd be hard to argue with the call. There's a lot of, for whatever reason, they start particularly poorly. They arguably should have found themselves 4 points down in this game. If I don't know if you remember Aidan O'Shea's first wide, the one on his left, where he came in on the end and tried to curl it. If that goes over, you're 4 points. It was 6-3 at that stage. If he kicks it at 7-3, and you've found yourselves in a hole early on. So just whatever it is about the way they start games, even just I don't know why, but the start of this game was just bizarre by both teams. Like there was really weird turnovers. Stephen Cohen kicked the ball just straight out over the sideline. Like
There
it's kind
was
of hard to
stages
make
of
sense.
the first half where that game did feel a bit dead.
Yeah, I think generally, I think even if there's an absence of quality, if there's a lot of turnovers, it can be entertaining. But there's a threshold to that. You can't go to the kind of farcical levels where it's just turnover. At one stage, Jordan Flynn had the ball, he's turned over by Dylan McHugh. It's a turnover again a second later, and it's just kind of it's like a bar of soap. But so yeah, whatever went on in the other side, was it maybe a degree or two below the quality you would want in it, but it became a right good game as it went on. They got that out of their system, and it got up and running. But from a goal perspective, it is something that John Maher came on. I thought he had a brilliant impact. At both early subs, Shane obviously came thundering into the game as well. So I guess you could say they were justified in making the early calls. It always feels a bit harsh, doesn't it? Seeing a guy come off before half time. But look at they made both calls and they both worked out. So I suppose the managers are praised for that too.
Just before we look ahead to the All Ireland Series group, best performers yesterday for Galway, Barry. Who were they for you?
For me, I suppose, look, obviously Damien takes all the plaudits and again was an outstanding performance. For me, Johnny McGrath was, and then look, the whole full back line were excellent. Like I don't think Mayo actually got a goal chance in the game. Galway stood up really, really well. And look, yes, there's going to be areas to improve on that first half, probably parts of it. I think about 12 or 13 minutes in the third quarter where they didn't get a score as well, which was they were lucky. Again, it was down to the backs. That Mayo didn't get a couple of tag on it, another couple of scores at a crucial time. I think it went to 7-7 instead of 8-6 at one stage, and then it went to 9-6, and it could have been a lot worse at that stage. But yeah, that was a standout for me. Obviously Rob Finnerty, Johnny Heaney again is very consistent. Again, one of the top wing forwards in the country as well. But yeah, the back six in general, but certainly Johnny McGrath for me stood out.
Yeah, just to add to that, Maurice, I felt Dylan McHugh yesterday, the way he supported Johnny McGrath at stages, his run to set up Shane's point, he really came of age yesterday in that second half.
Yeah, he's so good at that. Dropping into that little pocket that I don't know who loves it. Again, that reminded the 2022 game when himself and Malloy just dropped off as the double sweeper and took away that space. And but then just to see, he was 20. The thing I associate most of him in that 2022 season was he was just an assist machine. Like these really incisive runs and literally a perfect. He's Carfin born and bred. A perfect hand pass into a guy's chest plate as he's coming off the shoulder. Just hits him in stride, and that's what he did for the Shane point. So I'd agree with you 100%. It was great to see him at that level again.
Is picking goals half forward line going to be the biggest challenge moving forward?
Um, I think they'll go back to Matthew obviously starts, Johnny starts if they're both fit. So
Mm.
you've got a spot there, and then there's a there's a huge debate around that. If they seem to really like having the long option, so you've got Maher, Conroy, Kelly, and Keane Darcy all fighting for spots there.
Killian
And
McDade.
then Kelly McDade, what we haven't touched on that. What geez, it was so encouraging to see him back in a 26 yesterday. It sounds like according to Park after he hasn't done a huge amount of training, but just to see him coming out and doing the warm up, yeah, it would do you good. He's enjoyed right from the leg injury and missing the back end of the club campaign and then the grind. He's enjoyed a rotten run. So to see him back, fingers crossed that gets up and running. But yeah, it, I'd say that yeah, that line would pose problems. But I think if Matthew Tierney's fit and Johnny Heaney's fit, they'll both play. So you're probably fighting for a spot there.
And I think Barry Sweeney and Malloy are going to be fairly hungry to get back in there too.
Yeah, and that was the beauty of the league as well. As I said, whilst a lot of the opportunities were enforced, it really did give football to a lot of these guys that we now have a case where we're looking at certainly 2022 and a really really good panel and a really really good bench, because as we go deeper into the competition and the All Ireland series, these players like yesterday, like Donald when he came in, and like the lads who came on yesterday, that's what you want. And that was probably what was missing in 22, if we're being honest.
Just Barry, someone you worked with at club level, Sam O'Neill. Obviously, he was named on the 26 yesterday, but then obviously dropped out, and Killian took his place in the 26. There's a lot of excitement about Sam, it's safe to say, but how would you describe him as a footballer?
He's just so athletic and powerful. He's kind of he's got it all really, and to come back from an injury that he got at the back end of the club championship as well. Back in October, and he's only coming through now. He's worked really really hard, and in fairness to Galway, they've been very patient with him and managed that situation really really well. And his brother Jack, obviously in the greater panel, the extended panel as well. They're both very similar type footballers, but yeah, very athletic, and again, really excited to see what he can bring if and when he gets the opportunity, which I reckon he probably will. He's not too far off. As I said, he was on that 26 yesterday, up till lunchtime. So yeah, it'll be really really exciting to see what sort of you kind of dynamic he'll bring to the group.
Do you think he can get significant minutes in this championship?
I genuinely do. Yeah, I do. And I again, as I said, he's kind of an unknown quantity from an intercounty point of view, which will bring something as well. As I said, yes, he may not be a starter as we go through the year, but I do expect to see him. And as I said, he is a very exciting prospect.
So, Maurice, we've talked there about the competition now. It's in a fairly healthy place, and big positive out of yesterday is no injuries, thank God. But what do you think this Connacht Championship can do for Galway?
Fingers crossed it's the spark that's the exact same thing that 2022 win over Mayo did for them. Um, I wouldn't go overboard with it either. They definitely there was elements of the performance that they'll be frustrated by, and it was ultimately was a 1 point game, so this was the margins here are razor fine. There's obviously going to be room for improvement, as we said. But I genuinely think, just going back to that point earlier, it's the result, like it's what the psychological lift. It's I think there's a lot of lads were feeling the strain over the last couple of weeks, and for that burden to be off their back, and can you imagine the bounce in the training this week? And you start to see all the bodies that are available, and lads who haven't done a huge amount of training all suddenly back involved fully. That I think just the lift in the place must be something great, and the fact they've timed it as well as they did, that it all came together now when you're at the business end effectively is really encouraging as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, if you consider all the records yesterday, one win in eight, hadn't beaten Mayo on a Connacht final since
Don't bring that up.
2008. But I think they'd be delighted to get rid of all those records yesterday. But the All Ireland Series group now, Barry, uh, Derry, Westmeath, the loser, Donegal and Armagh. It's interesting even to hear John Dibley speaking to Galway Bay FM yesterday after the game, and he referenced as crucial to get a good Galway crowd here again for Derry in 2 weeks' time. But no doubt it's a tough group. But with the bodies we're bringing back now, the squad getting stronger and stronger, finishing first in this group has to be the target.
It does, and I don't think it's beyond the bounds. Obviously, Derry have had a great year, and surprisingly maybe went out very early out of the Ulster Championship. But if you go back even to the league game in Pearse Stadium, Galway were fairly badly hit with injuries that day, and Derry were at full tilt at that time, and Galway stayed in that game for a long, long time, and that'll give heart as well. But yeah, I don't think there'll be any problem getting a crowd into Pearse Stadium the next day on the back of the weekend. But yeah, it'll be tough. Again, it was disappointing that the draw kind of it was made last week, and there was murmurings of would it be better to lose or win, and it just was a distraction, I suppose, that nobody really needed. But look, it doesn't matter what group you're in. As you say, you want to be tested as well, which will be good. And each of those games on their own merit will be really, really good contests. I think they have Westmeath away, they've Derry obviously at home. I think the Armagh or Donegal game will be neutral. So yeah, there'll be good tests, but that's what you want now. And particularly with the lads coming back, they'll want and they'll relish those games, and it'll focus a little bit better as well.
Maybe putting you on the spot here a bit, Mars, but who would you prefer, Armagh or Donegal?
Um, Armagh, I think. Galway will have no fear of Armagh. The McGuinness thing is going to be in people's heads. It's psychological, and just people are bouncing about it, even if it's not. I'm maybe I'm one of the disbelievers. I'm not necessarily sure is it quite at the levels of his first reign yet. I'm not, I think there's definitely they're incredibly fit and they've a very organized structure, but I think there's definitely room for improvement in them too. But look, psychologically, Paul, I think Galway have absolutely no fear about Armagh. I'd say they're of all the games that they're haunted by last year, that one in Carrick Shannon is at the chief forefront of their mind. And ironically, I think the same thing is true for Derry in this group as well. I think there's no psychological hang up from a Galway
Yeah.
perspective whatsoever. They have a very good record against them. I actually thought their one of their better league performances was against Derry in Perseid this year. Obviously in 2022 they had a comprehensive win in the league that year and then bet them in championship. As I mentioned, I'm not necessarily sure that Derry have as good matchups um, versus if for example if they end up in the other group, I think their record against Dublin is really poor, and maybe that's would penetrate too. But no, so if it was, I think they have absolutely no fear of top in this group. I do think I know the public haven't embraced this format, and I can understand why. But I definitely think from a team's perspective, if, there's a lot of teams are really conscious of the need to top your group.
Yeah.
Your life is really really difficult if you end up playing three games in basically week on week on week. You go from a final round of the Sam Maguire series into a preliminary quarterfinal into a quarterfinal. That's a hard slog. So that Derry game is obviously massive, but a win there and geez, you think they're bouncing now? Can you imagine what they'd be like in 3 weeks?
Yeah, I really think though Mayo and Dublin capitulate in Croke Park. I think if it is, we're
Yeah, I agree with your whole, and I think from a club from a GEA perspective, I think they've done a lot right. Like, and I know people tend to throw arrows at them and stuff, and but like I think they're smart people in there, and they will hopefully appreciate the fact that if they do that, I think this will go like the Super 8 this format. I
yeah.
genuinely think the public will turn their backs on it if it ends up fixing it in Croke Park. Just put it into a provincial venue. Let's put that in
They're
the
not
High
going to
East.
fill it
But
right anyways, like
yeah, I think the Gaelic grounds would be a class for something like that. Like
yeah.
go back to the 2014 semi-final, something like that. Yeah, so the Gaelic grounds are the high, put it in there, and people will their fate in the competition won't be damaged. So, yeah, fingers crossed. They
And
see
can
sense
you
of that.
imagine too the buzz that it would create and the demand for tickets and the whole
Exactly. Yeah.
it's like it'll be the talk of the week if you like. And if you even look even yesterday looking at the Kerry Clare game being in Ennis, it had that championship feeling where if that had been in Killarney, you know, and it wouldn't have been the same. Or in Thurles or somewhere like a smaller venue. Yes, the demand for tickets will be huge, but as Maurice said, it wouldn't be sold out in Croke Park anyway. And it would definitely generate a bit more of a buzz about the place.
Just before we move on to the 20s coming up short, can we finish first in this group?
Yeah, I think as Maurice said, they won't fear anybody, and it is important again from a momentum point of view. But there's definitely nothing to be overly concerned about. And I think you're right there, Maurice, earlier. Yesterday wasn't ideal. So to win a game like yesterday and have all the euphoria of it and the emotion and the excitement and still have stuff to work on
Yeah.
is a dream. And players to come back. So yeah, for me, it should be and I know it will be the goal. They're a very ambitious group, and I think yesterday will bring them on a huge amount in the manner that it was. But yeah, they definitely won't fear any of Donegal or Armagh, Derry or Westmeath.
Talk about records too. Pork's records going against Ulster teams, Mark.
Exceptional. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely exceptional. And I think, Paul, I genuinely do think that the fact that they kept the faith and they got a result like that, it just adds to it. Yes, we are on the right path. All the kind of small lingering doubts that might have been there, they're put to bed now. So I think from where the group are at, they've whatever about improvements in performance, I think improvements in morale, improvements in the psychological fortitude of the group, they got just as much out of that yesterday.
A great win, great to beat the neighbours. We'll take that for sure. Galway's next outing is Derry in the opening round of the All Ireland series. Before we do finish up, obviously the Galway under 20s came up short in the Connacht final at the weekend, unfortunately. 3-13 to 17 points. In the end, Barry, in this game, goals just came at the wrong time for Galway.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. And look, when you look at the game, it was 17 scores to 16, and you lost. Yeah, the goals were the killers, really. Um, you like that? I think Roscommon possibly could have had even another one or two goals. It's a really, really talented group, and that's what's probably disappointing. There was some great performances there through the series, particularly that first half against Sligo. For me, was probably the best exhibition of football I've seen this year so far at any level. And it was heartbreaking for a lot of the lads that were there. But I believe there's a lot of them fellas on that panel again next year. So that'll be something exciting to look forward to. And look, this year will be a huge learning, I'm sure, both for the management and the players themselves.
Said like that's a really talented Roscommon team. I think going into the game, you would have said, geez, they have some really good forwards. Like we would have seen Heenan, we would have seen McGinley, Bobby Nugent, familiar with him from the Go campaign. So you would have had a small bit of, I don't know, not apprehension, but definitely thought two really stacked forward lines going out of here. Is this going to become a bit of a shootout? And Roscommon got a savage start like that which in fairness, Galway responded really well. Jack Mullen kicked a screamer. Like, geez, he looked really good. Um, they responded really well to that. And then second half, same thing again, poor start. And you could tell, I thought throughout the game, Roscommon were conceding the kick out. They were very obviously, they clearly had targeted, would let, Galway's, their full back line or their defenders get the ball and they will meet them and try and turn them over. And unfortunately, that's how, it's just a bad hand pass for the third goal and that kind of three-man weave. McGinty coming in along the end line. That was a great goal again. And that ultimately proved their undoing. But just to go back to that, like I think there's a lot of reasons for optimism. I know you're joking there, but I think all three of the Tuam lads look like really
Yeah.
exciting. I think beyond that, Costello has had a really good year. Matthew Thompson I mean, there's no harm in exposing him to a senior training as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of lads there who are underage again for next year, who you'd hopefully see a couple more of the lads who won the All Ireland come into that team
Yeah.
for next year as well. So the likes of Amon and maybe Sean Dunn as well, you see them come in. So look, it was a disappointing result, but and geez, I mean the Saturday night you were watching the hurling, you're going into that and you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen on Sunday if Galway lose again next week could be absolutely miserable. So um at the time you were probably feeling slightly low on it, but now you can be a bit more sensible about it and realise that there's a lot of lads there who should have long careers for Galway.
Yeah, Ross Cohen seemed to be carrying a bit of a knock. He was a big loss because he performed really well against Sligo. Hard to believe Ross Cohen and McGlinchey are still in secondary school, given the back of their campaigns. But just on it, the last two games in particular against Sligo and against Roscommon in that final, like the biggest positive you'd have to say there, Barry, is how much this team has scored in the last two games.
Yeah, look, as I said, to score 17, 16 and lose. But yeah, like that first half, as I said, was brilliant. I watched it a few times since. It was really, really good quality, traditional Galway football. And they're, as I said, a really, really talented group. Uh, Three Tumstat lads will obviously stand out. Mike Mullen for me was a huge bonus. He came in, I think, as a sub late on against Sligo and held his place then the last day, which was excellent. Thompson, as we mentioned, Costello, even our
Young
own.
McDonagh looked really well too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and Jack Folan as well, and we had a young man there that missed the whole campaign, Jack Nolan, who again is really really exciting, and that was a huge blow for the panel as well. So, look, I think all in all, and look, again, you can't deny Roscommon. It was a good side, and they will take beating as they go through. Me, for me, I think Meath are the team to beat in that competition. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But look, yeah, from a Galway point of view, I think the future looks bright.
And really positive, just to finish, Mars, to get the six games into this team.
It's unbelievable. On one end, it's kind of hard to fathom how it took as long as it did to get a format like this. Like the fact that there's lads my age who are playing under 21 and it was straight knockout is baffling. Like what development do you get out of that? So yeah, look, it's a full credit to them for that structure, and you definitely saw that was the nature of, again, we talked about how fickle football is earlier. You could really see this is still development football. Huge peaks, kind of low troughs, even sometimes within games. But what they will get out of that, everybody involved, Paul, even from a manager perspective, what they
Yeah,
learn from it will be massive. So, yeah, look, it was a disappointing result, but geez, you wouldn't be downbeat whatsoever about their prospects for everybody associated moving forward.
for sure. That's the end of the under 20s campaign. Our Roscommon advanced to All Ireland semi final against Tyrone. But the main thing is we bet Mayo, and that's all that matters. But that's all we do have time for on today's podcast. Thanks to Maurice and Barry for coming on.
Thanks a million, Paul.